Looks complex, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't I do this last week with you?
No, you don't.
No.
All right. This is a microscopic section of the small intestine. Actually, of the jejunum of the small intestine, but that small intestine is good enough for you to know. And you remember that the small intestine, as well as the rest of the digestive tract, basically is made up of a mucosa, a muscularis, and a serosa. Okay, so from here up, we have mucosal. Here are muscles. Okay, so this is muscularis, and this thin serosal layer over here. You can see the flattened squamous epithelial cells making up the serous membrane right there. Let's work our way this way. Here we have muscle that runs the length of the intestine. So this is longitudinal muscle. It's thinner than the thicker circular muscle. Okay. So you cut the circular muscle the fibers this way, and you cut the longitudinal muscle fibers this way. Right? So we can dispose of those very nicely. The yellow things that you see here are part of the nervous system. I'll get back to naming those for you as we go in this direction. So now, here is the lumen of the intestine. The food is sliding along over here. Okay. We have these finger-like projections coming up from the mucosa. These are called villi. So each one of these things are villi. In the middle of a villus is a lacteal. This green thing that you see here, that's a lacteal, and all of these green things are filled with lymph. The lacteal absorbs fats, fatty acids, glycerol, cholesterol. Any fats that are going to be absorbed from the gut are going to enter the lacteal, not the blood. Here are the capillaries that are going to pick up the glucose, you know, the carbohydrate digestive products as well as the protein digestive products. So only the fats are going to enter the lacteal. All the other digestive products are going to enter these capillaries. We can see that the villi are lined by these columnar epithelial cells, and the little blue jobs amongst them are known as mucus glands. They have another name too. What name do I have over there?
Paneth?
Not paneth.
Goblet?
Goblet. Of course, under the microscope, they kind of look like a wine glass. So they're called goblet cells. Okay, so these blue jobs, if I label the blue thing over here, you got to tell me goblet cell or mucus gland cell. Okay? And these are columnar epithelial cells. And those columnar epithelial cells, although you don't see it here, this isn't blown up enough. But if you blew this up enough, you know, microscopically, if you magnified it even more, you would see that the ends, the open ends of these columnar epithelial cells have microvilli. All right, so we've got this capillary network, capillary net, let's call it. You don't have to worry about this arteriovenous anastomosis that I show you. I promise not to ask you for it. So you should know capillary net, you should know lacteal, you should know villus, you should know columnar epithelial cell, you should know goblet cell. All right, so far. Next. Down here, this red thing, you see this depression, these red things down here? Those are Paneth cells. Paneth cells are especially able to phagocytize bacteria, debris and stuff that leaks in. So this is part of our immune system. This protects us from all the bacteria from the food and junk that we eat, from sucking our thumb and who knows what. One interesting thing about this area is that these epithelial cells are subject to a lot of wear and tear from digestive juices, from pieces of nut and other hard debris that comes down the pike that we've eaten. So they break up, they fall apart, and they get thrown into the digestive mix here. So to a small extent, we're sort of auto-cannibalistic. You know, we digest our own cells, and they also empty their enzyme contents in to contribute to the digestive process. But at any rate, down here, those cells are proliferating. They're undergoing mitosis, and they march up. You know, as more and more get made, the others get pushed up. By the time they get to the top of the hill, they're disintegrating and they're falling off. So you got the panic protective cells, you got the actively mitosing cells, they march up, they fall off. All right, so that's that setup. What you see here, these pink lines moving up, they come from this very thin muscle layer called the muscularis mucosa, because this is a muscle layer in the mucosal layer. Okay, it's not in the muscle layer. In the muscularis, it's in the mucosa. Okay, so this is called muscularis mucosa, and it sends muscle fibers up into the villi. They have a relatively important function. They not only enable the villi to wave back and forth to help move the food along and make sure that the stuff that's being absorbed doesn't stay close to here so that no more gets absorbed, fresh material comes in, rich in foods that can be absorbed. And they can also cause these villi to pump up and down. As they pump up and down, they squeeze against the blood vessels. They move the blood along so that fresh blood that hasn't absorbed anything yet comes along, so that the fusion can take place at a nice rapid clip. So this is the muscularis mucosa, and these would be fibers of the muscularis mucosa. If you just label it, if I label this and you just tell me muscularis mucosa, I'll be happy. This gland over here is meant to be a lymph node. It's not really a gland, or maybe it's a lymph gland. It's a lymph node. And all of these dark purple things inside here are lymphocytes. So, of course, it's not surprising that an area that's going to be richly supplied with bacteria, which could injure us, we're going to have a lot of protective elements present. So besides the Paneth cells, we've got these lymphocytes. And the lymphocytes move away from here. You know, they wander. So here, you see, is a little purple cell. Here's a little purple cell. These little purple cells, which you see here and there, are wandering lymphocytes, which are wandering away from here. This other blue cell here is not a lymphatic cell. This is called Brunner, B-R-U-N-N-E-R, Brunner, Brunner's gland. Brunner's gland secretes a lot of mucus. It secretes stuff that neutralizes the acid, like carbonate and stuff like that. So anyway, we just refer to it as Brunner's gland. I won't ask you for its function. Brunner's gland, B-R-U-N-N-E-R. And these openings of Brunner's gland right here are known as crypts, C-R-Y-P-T-S, crypts. A German by the name of Lieberkuhn first described them, so they're called crypts of Lieberkuhn. I don't know, what did I write in there? Just crypt? Or crypt? Okay, so crypts of Lieberkuhn. Here you see some more Paneth cells, right? See them? Here you see muscularis mucosa. Okay. Here you can see longitudinal fibers, and here you can see circular fibers. No, I'm sorry, the other way around. Here you see circular fibers, and here longitudinal. Now, the yellow elements that you see. You see some thin yellow elements here, and over here you see these very thick ones here. Let me raise this. See the thick ones and the thin ones. All of these yellow things are nerve tissue, okay? They're nervous elements. They're part of the parasympathetic sympathetic nervous system that controls the peristalsis and the movement of the stomach, the up and down, the contractions here that move the food along peristaltic waves. So the thinner elements here are known as Meissner's plexuses, M-E-I-S-S-N-E-R, Meissner's plexus. The thick ones are Auerbach's plexus. Thick ones are Auerbach's plexus. So the thin ones control the muscularis mucosa, The thicker ones control the peristaltic waves of the muscularis coat.
What is the sub mucosa? What is that?
Where do you see?
Right here. It says sub. Is that sub?
Submucosal plexus. Control secretions. Okay, yeah, so niceness controls. I don't, you know, I'm not going to ask you for submucosal. Niceness controls the pumping up and down, the waving back and forth, the secretion and stuff like that. And Auerbach's controls peristaltic waves for the most part. Basically, that's all you need to know. One other thing, the gray stuff. Anything gray you see on these pictures, that's connective tissue. It's got a specialized name. What's the name on there?
Serosa?
No, not serosa. Serosa's out here. Lamina propria. L-A-M-I-N-A-P-R-O-P-R-I-A. 2 words. Lamina propria. Anything gray, call it lamina propria. It's connective tissue.
We went to 11 minutes and 30 seconds, but your battery's going to